Hello and welcome back, folks. Today I've got another rant in store for you, which is all about weapon caps. And the main question I gotta ask you is, why do we have weapon caps in this game? If you go over here, you can take a look and you can see that there's a single gunfire rate and then a max gunfire rate. We have a max count. For the decimator, it's 6 guns. Why 6 guns? You go to a razor, it's 5 guns. Why do we have these caps in the game at all? At first, the answer seems kind of obvious, and this dates back quite a ways. It's if you could just keep adding more and more guns, you would just do more damage. You would have a superior robot, which, I mean, that was kind of a broken system, and they put in caps to limit the fire rate so that you wouldn't have gun spam all the time. But then we added in the power system last February, I believe, and it kind of seems redundant to have all these weapon caps. Go to, I mean, all the mega weapons, quote, air quotes there, they have a weapon cap of 2. I mean, we used to be able to have 4 of these, and in fact I've got a couple bots I just kind of have for posterity's sake. This is a duplicate of one of my all-time favorite robots. It was a quadruple mega plasma, and this thing was like perfectly max CPU and did an absolute metric shit ton of damage, with the trade-off of it had no health. And I'm kind of sad that this doesn't make any sense anymore. It's not viable because it has 4 mega plasmas at 300 CPU each, and your fire rate is capped at 2. And, I mean, you can apply this to other weapons too. This here is just sort of a pipe dream of mine. I want to make a bot like this, with quadruple arrow flax, to get quadruple the fire rate out of it. But a bot like this makes no sense in the game with the way the mechanics work currently. And that really frustrates me and makes me a bit sad, because I feel like freeing up this sort of thing and removing weapon caps and just making it so your damage, your power consumption, they're all linear. If you have twice as many guns, you fire twice as quickly, you consume twice as much power, which means you run out of power faster, so it frees up a lot of design choices there and allows you to make more types of robots. Same thing here, look at the lock-on missile launcher. It's capped at 2. Now, here's what really frustrates me about the way the caps are implemented at present. Actually, I don't have one. We'll just look at it. There we go. So the single gunfire rate is 2.67 missiles per second, and the max fire rate when you add a second gun at 275 CPU, it goes up to 3.33. That's only an extra 2/3 of a missile per second. It's a marginal improvement. It is not doubling your fire rate, and that's true for pretty much all of these large guns. The ion distorter, the ion distorter actually does double. I think it's the only one that does though. But the chain shredder, it goes from 16 per second to 20 per second, and I believe that's only a 20% improvement. For twice the CPU, it costs you twice as much CPU to get 20% more fire rate. Flak, same deal. And well, here's a current balance issue, which I'm sure a lot of you have noticed, is an Aeroflak Sentinel it costs 150 CPU, and it has almost all the fire rate of 2 Aeroflak Guardians, which is supposed to be the max fire rate. I calculated it out, and this actually has 2/3 of the DPS, 2/3 the fire rate, for only 1/4 of the CPU cost. If you make weapon caps linear, it doesn't just make gun spam have a lot of damage, or at least Alpha Strike. It also would nerf these kinds of builds where you get most of the benefit for only a fraction of the CPU. Because if it was linear, this would only do 1/4 of the damage and the fire rate, and you're only spending 1/4 of the CPU. Which makes sense. It's linear, it's intuitive. And the way they've got all these non-linear non-linear weapon caps and stacks, and I really feel the game is missing out on something that it could be able to have. Like, think if you could make a quadruple chain shredder. That thing would be like probably 1800 CPU. You would do quadruple the chain shredder damage, but you could only do it for about 4 or 5 seconds before you ran out of power, at most. It's probably not so viable, but it would be an option. You could try to play a min-max build like that and put all the CPU into building something like that. And for just a couple of seconds, you would absolutely annihilate anything in front of you. But the trade-off is you're really big and you're really fragile. And I like having those trade-offs in the game, because you can go the other way too. You can make something that's big and tanky and doesn't take much power. I really like this game, and I feel it has lost some of the building freedoms it used to have, and I think this would be adding on something that the game actually never had in the first place, which would be the linear damage scaling. If you got a double SMG like this, it does quite a bit of damage. If you lose one of them, it seems like you should only be able to do half the DPS, half the damage. But on the other end of that, you could build one that has 3 or 4 of these laser leviathans, something that we used to be able to do with the mega weapons. But you can make those trade-offs. You can make those decisions. You can make a rail that has like 20 rails on it if you want. It's going to cost you a lot of CPU. It's going to be a big robot. And there's definitely some trade-offs. But you could do that. And then you'd have a really high fire rate. Or you could go the other way, something a little bit more balanced, and you still get a pretty good fire rate, but you don't use up all your power, and it can be a smaller, more compact build. Better for sustained damage. So, I just implore you to think about this, and if you feel that this is a good idea, or some of you probably aren't going to think it's a good idea, but I just encourage you to think what the game could be like if we didn't have weapon caps, and all the damage in the game was a linear scale. If you double the number of guns, you double the amount of damage, and you double your power consumption. And then you can go the other way. You can make something smaller. It uses less power, costs you less CPU, and you can sustain that damage. And you get to make those choices, those decisions. And you can really, at that point, it opens up so many new opportunities for building different kinds of robots. Well, this is running a little bit long now, so hope you enjoyed. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can go ahead and put those down in the comments below. And if you really like this idea, you can probably try to tweet it at the devs, though I haven't been getting a very good hit rate on returns from them. So without further ado, do take care.